Hey 720 students, Dr. Piantek here. I promised you a video pertaining to references and the importance of using references to support scholarly writings such as papers and some discussion boards, as well as your scholarly project. So firstly, I would like to go over some general rules about selecting references. Typically, primary sources are the way to go when it comes to finding references to support your document. Secondary references are those that typically is a culmination of previous research, or it's like a summary of a author's work that is not the emphasis of the paper. It's a summary, but it's not the actual research itself. So typically speaking, if you're going to use a secondary reference, go back, whatever you're referencing, if it came from a primary source, which it most likely did, go back to that primary source and review it. So how you would cite that then in an in-text citation would be XYZ 2018, see also ABC 2018, all right? So the XYZ is your secondary reference and the ABC is actually the primary. So that's kind of how you would cite something in that nature. So it's not wrong to use secondary references, but always go back to the primary source and make sure that you can actually include that into your paper. Now, with that being said, a lot of times primary references might be outside of that 10-year block. And remember, when you're doing any kind of scholarly writing, usually 5 to 10 years. 10 years might be a little extreme. I know here at McKendree, they usually like to have references within the last 5 years. But there are some there are some instances where a 10-year reference that's been published 10 years ago might be very relevant to your work. So check with your individual chair about that question, but typically I don't mind anything that's 10 years or less. If it is beyond that, you are going to need to indicate why you have selected that reference. So in other words, why is that salient to your scholarly writing? So for example, if you are looking at a specific theory, maybe there was a theory that was developed in 1980, and you are going to use that theory and incorporate that into your work. That original writing of that theory from the theory's author is very important for your scholarly work. You don't want to exclude it just given the fact that it was published back in 1980. So you can use that most definitely, and we encourage you to go back. Again, it's that primary reference. Go back and cite that, but then just include in there a line of saying this reference is relevant because it was the first publication of this theory, or something along that lines to show why you are selecting this reference that is that old. Or if it's a theory as established in 1980 by so-and-so, the theory of whatever was introduced. And again, by saying that this was an original work, gives the indication to your reader that you have gone back into the literature and you found the initial publication of that theory, for example. Okay, so I hope that clarifies things. So yeah, references are very relevant. They're used to support our claims. Without them, we really lack the evidence to even form our scholarly project. So it's important to really search the literature. And I think, as I had mentioned in one of the discussion board posts from last week, if you feel overwhelmed with reading all of the pieces of literature that you're receiving or looking at through the Holman Library or through Google Scholar or through PubMed, you can just really kind of look at those abstracts, and a well-written abstract will give you the information that you need to determine if you want to use that reference or not. So, look for those abstracts. So I think that pretty much covers the whole importance of finding relevant, timely articles to support your work. And of course, textbooks are great. So, that's something that you can do. Websites also will have a lot of great information. So things like through the CDC or through the NIH, through pretty much any professional organization is certainly something that you can look at. With websites, I always tell everyone that I teach, avoid those that are the .coms. Those are usually like your fly-by-night kind of references. They may not hold a lot of merit to them, but things like .gov, .org, .edu, those usually are strengthened with evidence, so those are good references to use in your paper. And of course, if you ever have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me, or if it's outside of 720, if you're working on Chapter 2 or Chapter 3, don't hesitate to contact your scholarly project chair, and he or she will be able to answer your questions. So I hope that this helps. Please let me know if you have any questions, and have a great week. Thanks.